Hello everyone, I'm Freaky and welcome to the video. My friends, I love the Looney Tunes. I love Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, Sylvester and Tweety, Roadrunner, and Wile E. Coyote, Tasmanian Devil, Pepe Le Pew, Yosemite Sam, Elmer Fudd, Granny, and I also love the lesser known Looney Tunes, like Ralph Wolf and Sam Sheepdog, and so many other Looney Tunes characters. I mean, I love them all. But one of my top 5 iconic Looney Tunes characters is Daffy Duck. Now, there's been loads of variations of Daffy over the years. He's been in loads of incarnations, but my favourite era of Daffy Duck is the late 1930s to the early 60s. Yeah, those were the golden years of Daffy Duck. Now, when it comes to Daffy, he's usually famously paired with Bugs Bunny, and when Daffy is paired up with Bugs, Daffy is always the one that gets the short end of the stick, which I don't actually mind. Now, when it came to Bugs Bunny, Bugs 99% of the time would usually win in the end, which, by the way, I also made my top 20 favourite Bugs Bunny cartoons, so if you guys want to go and check that out, please do. I'll leave a link in the description box below to that video. So yeah, let's get back to Daffy. Now, when it came to Daffy, I would say he is definitely one of the loonier and crazier Looney Tunes characters. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, all the other characters in the Looney Tunes have their crazy, cartoony moments, but to me, I think Daffy is the craziest one of all, out of all of the Looney Tunes. And you know what? I absolutely love him for that. Again, when it came to Bugs Bunny, he 99% won most of his battles, but when it came to Daffy, it was almost like 50-50, or it would sometimes be a mix of things. On rare occasions he would win, sometimes he would lose, but there would also be those occasions where he would be causing most of the problems, but somebody else would take the fall for Daffy. When it comes to Daffy, he's all over the place. Sometimes he would get the raw end of the deal, sometimes he's just messing around with people, sometimes he would win, and sometimes you can understand his frustration. He's just all over the place, and that's why I love Daffy. He's just all over the place. Even though Bugs Bunny is the cool Looney Tune that wins most of his battles, and that's all well and good, and I absolutely love Bugs doing his own thing, but in my opinion, I think Daffy is more funnier than Bugs. And I do admit that Bugs Bunny is the icon and the leader of the Looney Tunes. It's like Mickey Mouse. You know Mickey Mouse is the leader of Disney, but you've also got Goofy and Donald and all these other characters. But saying that, I love Donald Duck more than I do Mickey. It's kind of sort of something like that, but Bugs Bunny is a million times more funnier and likable than Mickey. But yeah, anyways, I'm getting off track. Even though I do love Bugs Bunny, but I love Daffy a little bit more, especially when he's all by himself or he's paired with other characters that isn't Bugs Bunny. And not to say there's anything wrong with that, I just think Daffy is funny by himself or he is either with Porky Pig or any other character. But hey, that's just my opinion. And in this video, I'm going to show you guys why, and show you guys which top 20 Daffy Duck cartoons are my favourites. So I'm going to give you guys some warning now. If your favourite cartoon of Daffy Duck isn't on this list, just let you guys know that this is my personal favourite Daffy Duck cartoons. So if your favourite Daffy Duck cartoon isn't on this list, I apologise. Again, these are going to be my personal favourites. And also, I'm going to be giving some spoilers to all these episodes that's on this list. So if you haven't seen these cartoons, stop this video and go and watch those cartoons of Daffy Duck. And so with that said, let's resume with the list. Number 20. The Impatient Patient. Now, when it came to this episode, this was actually my very first Daffy Duck cartoon. Now, to some of you are thinking, hold on, how the hell do you know this was your first Daffy Duck cartoon? Well, the reason why this is my very first Daffy Duck cartoon is because I used to have this on VHS, and I would watch it all the time. At the very least, I think this was my very first Daffy Duck cartoon because I remember it and I used to watch it all the time when I was a kid. So basically what happens, Daffy's trying to deliver a telegram to a character named Chloe, and throughout this episode, Daffy has the hiccups, which in my opinion is funny. It just goes okay, bad impression, but that part where he has the hiccups is just funny to me. He finds a creepy house that's owned by a doctor and he's trying to find Chloe, and all sorts of things goes on in this episode. Daffy has the hiccups, he's sneaking around in this creepy house, and he's being chased by this monster or something, and it's one of the most tense Daffy Duck cartoons as well. Well, only a little bit. And my favourite part is when Daffy has the hiccups and when he's being chased by Chloe. This is one of the most memorable cartoons of Daffy Duck to me, and it was fun to watch. I definitely liked it. And with that said, let's resume to the next one. Number 19 is Robin Hood Daffy. Now, this was another cartoon that I saw on the Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner picture show. And basically what happens in this episode, Daffy comes across Porky Pig, which is Friar Tuck, and Porky asks Daffy if he knows where he can find Robin Hood. And Daffy tells Porky that he is Robin Hood, but Porky doesn't believe him, thinking that Daffy's just a travelling clown. So Daffy, throughout the entire episode, tries to convince Porky that he is Robin Hood by trying to take somebody's gold and give it to somebody who's poor. And Daffy fails every single time. And my favourite part in this episode is when Daffy is up in the trees, and when the man with the gold comes past, Daffy swings from the branch and he goes, "Yikes, and away!" And he slams into another tree and he goes, "Yikes, and away!" And the cycle continues. I thought that was just funny. I mean, the idea that Daffy is Robin Hood and this is a satire of Robin Hood just makes it much more funnier. I mean, I watched this episode loads of times when I was a kid, to a point I almost got sick of watching it. But I do remember the good times when I watched this episode. So yeah, well, that's said and done, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Stupid Duck. Again, like the last segment, this episode is a satire of Superman, and it's basically Daffy being Superman. And this episode gave me a good laugh, because in the last segment they made Robin Hood incompetent, but in this episode they made Daffy stupid. And in this episode, Daffy overhears somebody in the next room say they're gonna blow up buildings and blow up bridges and so on and so on. And Daffy quickly changes, and when we see the room again, it was just somebody watching something on TV. And that's what Daffy heard, and he's going all over the place thinking, oh, buildings are going to be blown up and boats and bridges are going to be blown up. And he does come across buildings, ships and bridges that does look like they're in trouble. And I'll just be honest, if I was to say anything more, it would ruin the laughs. But Daffy in this episode was really, really funny. And I think my favourite moment in this episode was the beginning. And it was a satire of Superman's beginning. Like, he's faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. And the way they portray these things is just pathetic. And you know what? That was funny. I just love that part. But that's not to say the other parts in this cartoon wasn't funny. I just love the satire throughout the entire cartoon. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Ain't That Ducky. Now, when it comes to this episode, I wouldn't say it's the most funniest, but I do like the premise. Basically, there are three characters. There's Daffy, an old hunter that isn't Elmer Fudd, and a young duckling. And this young duckling has this sort of briefcase with him, and throughout the cartoon, he's just crying and crying and crying, and he just wants to be left alone. And the hunter is after Daffy, and throughout the cartoon, they come across the same duckling with his briefcase, and he's crying. And when the hunter or Daffy asks him about the briefcase, he always tells them to, shut up. And as the episode goes on, Daffy and the hunter gets fed up every single time they see the young duckling with his briefcase and him crying. They go from wanting to help the little duckling, asking him, what's wrong, do you need any help? And near the end, they actually try to steal it. And that's basically the funny parts of the episode. This little duckling, him crying with his briefcase, and he's telling people to go, shut up. And Daffy and this hunter go from wanting to help him to downright stealing his briefcase. And they really want to know what's in this briefcase. And I'm going to leave it to you guys to see what's in the briefcase at the end. This episode isn't the funniest, but I just enjoy it. It might not be the deepest, it might not be the funniest, but I still love this episode. And so that said, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is The Wise Quacking Duck. And it's about this little man called Mr. Meek, and he's told by his wife that she wants duck for dinner. And so he goes after Daffy, and throughout this cartoon, Daffy is just messing with this guy. And that's one of the reasons why I love this cartoon. Daffy is crazy, and he's messing with people. For me, I just love the chases, I love the comedy, I like how Daffy messes with this guy. And I think my favourite moment in this cartoon is when Daffy is jumping up and down in pies and cakes, and Mr. Meek says, there's that Daffy Duck. And Daffy says, you ain't no whistling Dixie, or something like that. And Daffy throws a cake onto his face. It's a fun, funny cartoon, and I just love Daffy's craziness. It's just all around fun. And so with that said, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is Daffy Duck in The Upstanding Sitter. Now, in this episode, Daffy is babysitting, and he's sitting on this chicken egg, and it hatches, and this little chick comes out, and the little chick asks if Daffy is related to him, like his mom, his dad, uncle, cousin, second cousin, that sort of stuff. And so the little chick just calls Daffy a stranger and he leaves. And Daffy's trying to get him back. And Daffy is getting into all sorts of trouble, falling on things, getting blown up. And Daffy is going through all this trouble just to get this little chick back. I mean, if Daffy only told the little chick that he was his babysitter, then all the stuff that Daffy went through in this cartoon wouldn't have happened. And like I said, Daffy goes through a lot in this cartoon, and he's only trying to do his job. Yeah, a honest day's work. And apparently, Daffy is the #1 babysitter at the agency. And like I said, Daffy goes through a lot of things in this cartoon, falling off things, being blown up, etc, etc. Sometimes he's usually messing with people, but in this cartoon, he's actually trying to do his job. And this little chick is making his job hard. And you know what? Daffy hasn't even done anything to earn all this abuse that's happening to him. But despite that, I absolutely love this cartoon. The chasing, the comedy, Daffy getting hurt. It's actually really nice for a change that somebody else who isn't Bugs is trolling Daffy while Daffy's trying to do his job, even when he doesn't deserve it. You know, it's just one of those things. Even though the entire episode is funny, I think my favourite part is when Daffy falls into the pigsty and the little chick says, "Hey, are you going to continue chasing me, or are you just going to be a pig?" I don't know, that part just really giggle. But like I said, I absolutely love this whole episode. It's fun, funny, the chases is great, the comedy's great, I just love it. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Birth of a Notion. In this episode, Daffy tricks a dog into thinking that he saved his life, and the dog offers Daffy a place to save for the winter, and the dog's master needs a duck's wishbone for his experiment. And at first, Daffy goes after the master, and then the master goes after Daffy, and the master tries to capture Daffy in all sorts of funny ways. And I think my two favourite parts in this episode is when Daffy is being chased by the master and he opens a door, and inside the door is scenery going past like a train or something. And Daffy says, "That's just plain old silly." And my other favourite part is when Daffy goes after the master, and then the master goes after Daffy, and then we cut to the dog again, and the dog says, "Remember me, the dog? I'm not giving a lot of time in this picture." So yeah, it is self-aware that the dog has been pushed over for Daffy and the master, and the dog's been left out of it. I just love that self-aware part. That was just funny to me. So yeah, it's funny, it's fun, the chases are funny, I love the contraptions in this house. It's all about a good time in this episode. And so with that said, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is Along Came Daffy. And it all begins with Yosemite Sam and his brother. They have nothing to eat, and even the mice are eating paper cutouts of cheese. And then Daffy comes along trying to sell him some stuff. And then Yosemite Sam lets him in, and Yosemite Sam and his brother is chasing him around, trying to kill and cook Daffy. And in this one, Daffy isn't trying to troll anybody, he's just doing his job, and these two guys are trying to kill and eat Daffy, and he outsmarts them every step of the way. And I think my favourite part in this episode is when Daffy says, lopping off its head and feet, and Daffy does this funny face. And you know what, I like the animation in this as well, it's very clean. And I think this is also one of the times where we get to see Yosemite Sam's brother. I think he was also in another cartoon, but yeah, this cartoon is one of the simpler cartoons. There's nothing really that stands out about it, but saying that, I really do love this cartoon. It's fun, funny, and I love the chase. And so with that said, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is Duck Dodgers in the 24.5th century. And this cartoon is a lot of fun. And also, fun fact, this cartoon actually inspired the series of Duck Dodgers in the 24.5th century. Yeah, there's an actual series with Daffy in it, and it was inspired by this cartoon, and that cartoon was decent in its own right. And when it comes to this cartoon, it is just all around funny. Duck Dodgers, or also known as Daffy, is trying to find the planet X, and when he finds it, he has to claim it in the name of Earth. But he gets into a fight with Marvin the Martian, who is also trying to claim Planet X in the name of Mars. Also, Porky is in this as well, and he's Daffy's assistant. And there are a lot of jokes in this cartoon, and it's really enjoyable to watch. I think my favourite joke within this cartoon is when Daffy is explaining to Porky of what their coordinates will be when they're making their journey to Planet X. And he goes all over the place on the map, and when Daffy finally finishes the coordinates, Planet X is more closer from when they started, and Daffy makes this map that goes all over the freaking universe when it was actually closer to home. And Porky suggests that they should just follow the planets that leads to Planet X. And funnily enough, all the planets are all letters from the alphabet like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. And you know what? That was just hilarious. And the banter between Marvin the Martian and Daffy is pretty damn funny as well. Marvin the Martian is also funny too. I also like the part where they exchange messages with guns, and when they get to their destination, they either send a message or they just fire at them. It's just all around funny. I just love this episode. Daffy isn't as loony as he is in other cartoons. He's more of the straight man in this cartoon. Well, kinda sorta. So yeah, I highly recommend this cartoon. And so that said, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is Daffy Duck in The Stupor Salesman. In this cartoon, a criminal named Slug McSlug robs, I think it was either a jewelry store or it was a bank, I can't remember. And so the police are after him, and he goes back to his hideout, and Daffy comes along, and Daffy is a door salesman, and he's actually trying to sell something to this guy, not knowing that this guy is actually a criminal. And Daffy throughout the entire cartoon is ignorant to this fact, and Slug McSlug keeps telling Daffy that he doesn't want anything. And to me, that is just funny. But I think my favourite part in this cartoon is at the end, where gas has flooded the entire house, and Slug McSlug throws Daffy out, and Daffy refuses to give up, and Slug McSlug tries to light a cigar light or something, and then the house blows up, and Slug McSlug is thrown through the air, and Daffy says, "I got him now, I've got him now, I know what he wants." And Daffy, with the door handle, shouts at Slug McSlug, with the door handle, says, "Hey mister, you need a house for this doorknob." For me, that part was just really funny. I just love it. And it's just funny that Daffy doesn't even know that this guy is actually a criminal, and Daffy is trying absolutely everything to sell this guy something. It's a right laugh, highly recommend it. And so with that said, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is Riff Raffy Daffy. In the beginning of this episode, Daffy is homeless and he's trying to get some sleep in the park, and Porky comes along every single time telling him that he can't sleep on the benches or sleep in the dustbins or sleep in the trees, and Porky actually throws him out of the park, and Daffy finds a kind of sort of mall place, and he's just chilling in the display where he's sitting on a master chair or something, and then Porky comes along and he's chasing Daffy all over the place, either trying to take him in or trying to kill him. And my favourite part is when Porky is telling Daffy to move along in the park, and then Daffy and Porky are arguing by the display case, and all the parts where Daffy outsmarts Porky is just hilarious. That is also one of my favourite parts, where he outsmarts Porky. Very funny, highly recommend it. And so that said, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is Daffy Duck Slept Here. In this cartoon, Porky's trying to find a place to sleep, and he finds an hotel, and he has to share a room, aka a bed, with someone, and that somebody is Daffy. I mean, seriously, who sleeps in the same bed as a stranger? I mean, come on. And throughout the cartoon, Daffy is just messing around with Porky, waking up Porky when he gets back, constantly waking him up and asking him what certain words mean, taking away the sheets. It's just really funny. And I think my favourite part in this cartoon is when Porky hopes that Daffy will come into the room quietly, but when Daffy does come home, he's singing and dancing and being all loony, and he wakes Porky up. I thought that part was really funny. And the other times that it's funny is when Daffy keeps on waking up Porky. Funny fun cartoon, love it. And so that said, let's resume to next one. And the next one is Daffy Duck in A Pest in the House. This is possibly one of the most funniest Daffy Duck cartoons ever, because not only is Daffy the cause of the problems in this cartoon, and he doesn't even get his comeuppance. Okay, basically what happens in this cartoon, a man checks in to the hotel, and Elmer Fudd and Daffy is working in there, and Elmer Fudd is the manager of the hotel, and Daffy is the bellhop, and a man comes in and he says that he's a very tired man, and he wants things to be peaceful and quiet so he can sleep, and if he doesn't get peace and quiet, he's gonna punch Elmer in the nose. Oh yeah, you guys know what's coming with this cartoon. Throughout the entire cartoon, I don't know if Daffy is doing it on purpose or he's being oblivious to it, but Daffy keeps on making so much noise in this cartoon, and every time he makes noise, the guy goes to Elmer and he punches him in the face, even though Elmer hasn't even done anything. I just find it hilarious. Even though that everything in this cartoon is funny, I think my favourite part is when somebody next door is singing and the guy is about to go and punch him in the face, and then Daffy comes in and he says, "Don't style yourself, sir, I'll go and deal with him," and the singing stops, and then after a few moments, that guy that was just singing and Daffy start singing together, and then Elmer Fudd gets punched in the face. It was just funny, I just love it. And so that said, let's move on to next one. And the next one is TikTok took it out. Now, unlike the last segment, this is actually the opposite, because in this cartoon, Daffy and Porky was late to work, and their boss says, if you're late one more time, you're fired. And later that night, Porky and Daffy goes to bed early, and Daffy and Porky get woken up by multiple things like cats meowing, thunderstorms. But even though Daffy is the one who gets messed around the most, but you know what, I'm okay with that. And I think my favourite part in this cartoon is when the moon is shining down into the room, shining on Porky and Daffy, and Porky tries all sorts of things to stop the moonlight from coming in. But in the end, Daffy wakes up, he gets a gun, and actually shoots the moon. And then Daffy is surprised, and he says, gruesome, isn't it? I mean, that part just really got to me. I just love the fact that Daffy is the one to actually solve this problem. That's my favourite part in this cartoon. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Yankee Doodle Daffy. Now, in this cartoon, Porky is a producer or something like that. And Porky's trying to go on to a vacation or something. And then Daffy stops him and he tells Porky that he's found the discovery of the century. He's found talent. And it's this little duck with a humongous giant lollipop. And Daffy tells Porky all the things that this kid can do. And while Daffy is singing and dancing, trying to convince Porky to give this kid a chance, Porky is actually trying to slip away and get to his plane. And believe it or not, I think this is actually the episode, or was parodied in South Park, and Mel Gibson was doing all of Daffy's parts within that episode. I believe it was called The Passion of the Jew, and this cartoon goes fast, and it looks like Daffy is being crazy and trolling at the same time, and he's singing. And my favourite part of this cartoon is when Daffy is just singing, especially the part where he goes, oh, chickaboo, 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 la la. That was just funny. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is To Duck or Not to Duck. In this cartoon, Daffy gets shot by Elmer, and he tells Daffy that he is a great sportsman. And then Daffy wakes up, and Daffy says, a great sportsman, are you kidding me? And Daffy keeps on going on to Elmer that Elmer Fudd doesn't play fair, that he's got a gun, a knife, and everything else, while Daffy doesn't have anything. So Daffy tells Elmer to fight him in a one-on-one fight in the ring, and they're going to do some boxing. And in this cartoon, Daffy's being Looney Toony, as he usually is. And you know what, it is a shame because there is rarely any boxing in this cartoon. But saying that, what we got was okay. And my favourite two parts is when Daffy goes to Elmer and he goes, sportsman, huh. I mean, come on, it looks like he's having a seizure of crying out loud. I mean, that was just funny. And my other favourite part is when the referee says, okay, you cannot do some of this, or some of that, or like so, or this, or this, or this. And then Daffy goes, you mean like some of this, some of that, like so, and this? And basically, he's just hitting Elmer, just to show examples of what you're not supposed to do. And funnily enough, there was actually a Courage the Cowardly Dog cartoon that actually did this, of this part of the cartoon. Daffy's loony, it's funny, it's fun, I love it. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Drafty Daffy. In this cartoon, Daffy is happy to hear that the Allies is beating the Nazis, and he's singing and dancing saying, hooray! Oh, we're winning the war. And he's even pretending to be in the war. Basically, Daffy's being very patriotic. And then Daffy gets a call saying that he's going to be drafted. And there's a little guy that's going to come to his house and give him a letter from the president to tell him that he's been drafted. And Daffy is scared out of his mind. And the little guy from the draft board comes to his house and starts chasing him, trying to give him a letter. And Daffy's just running away because he doesn't want to be drafted. It's just really, really funny how Daffy's just running away from this little guy. And I think my favourite part in this cartoon is when Daffy locks the little guy from the draft board in a safe. And he puts up a wall and he shouts at him, so long, Dracula! That got me a giggle every time. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is a tiebreaker. Well, remember when Daffy was afraid of being drafted in the last segment? Well, guess what? Even though Daffy has been drafted in this war, he's actually doing a pretty damn good job in both of these cartoons. And they're both called Plain Daffy and Daffy the Commando. And in both these cartoons, it's basically Daffy facing off against the Yahtzees. In Plain Daffy, he has to outwit a female Yahtzee. And in Daffy the Commando, he's basically making fun of the Yahtzees. Now, in both of these cartoons, he's basically facing off against the Yahtzees. They're basically the same, but I think Daffy the Commando is my favourite out of these. In Plain Daffy, my favourite part is when the secret is revealed to Hitler, and it says, "Hitler is a stinker? Well, that's no ordinary secret." And everyone else says, "Yes, everybody knows that." And then they shoot themselves. It was just funny. And when it came to Daffy the Commando, it was much more funnier. And I think my favourite 2 moments in this cartoon is when they're in the telephone box. That whole part was just really, really funny to me. And the other part is the ending, where Daffy hits Hitler. Even though that Daffy got drafted, he was funny, making fun of the Yazis. They were both great, they're fantastic, funny, all about fun. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Duck Amuck. Now listen, I know what some people are going to say. They're going to say, "Oh come on Freaky, Duck Amuck is one of the greatest cartoons ever. How can this cartoon be at number 2? Wait, let me explain something. The thing is, I used to watch this cartoon all the time when I was a kid. And I'm telling you guys, I used to watch it all the time. I watched it so much that I got sick of watching it. And listen, I do know how good this cartoon is. In fact, there's another cartoon with Bugs Bunny in it that's exactly like this one. And basically what happens is, in this cartoon, Daffy is actually being trolled by the animator. Daffy thinks he's a musketeer or something. Next, he thinks he's going to be a farmer. He thinks he's going to be in the North Pole or something. And the scenery keeps on changing over and over. And loads of things happen to Daffy in this cartoon. And Daffy's trying to do his job, and the animator keeps on messing with Daffy. I mean, in a way, I kind of feel sorry for Daffy because he's kind of being messed around with by a god. But saying that, everything in this cartoon is just top notch. It's just absolutely 100%, no, 1000% funny. It's just one thing after another, after another, after another. It is definitely one of the greatest Daffy Duck cartoons ever. But to me, it just feels a bit too meta to me. And like I said, I watched it too much, to a point that I got sick of it. That's why this cartoon is at number 2. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this cartoon at all, whatsoever. The comedy's funny, the jokes are funny. In fact, I wish this cartoon was a little bit longer. And my favourite part in this cartoon is when the animator puts Daffy in a sailor suit. And the animator also does the background animation or scenery. And then Daffy falls into the water and he crawls onto an island. And Daffy is far, far away. And he tells the animator, he says, "Hey, come here, give me a close-up, a close-up." And the animator puts Daffy in sort of a box or something. And Daffy says, "This is a close-up?" "A close-up, you jerk! A close-up!" And the animator gets absolutely close to Daffy, going up right up to his face, where you can only see his eyes. And that is my absolutely favourite part of the cartoon. But at the same time, you kind of feel sorry for Daffy. I mean, I know he can be a bit of a jerk sometimes, but again, he's just trying to do his job. But at the same time, it's just really, really funny how he just reacts to everything that's happening to him. It's just an all-about laugh. It's a good troll on what happens to Daffy. The only problem is I just watched it too much when I was a kid. To a point, I just got sick of watching it. But nevertheless, I do love this cartoon. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is The Great Piggy Bank Robbery. This is one of my favourite Daffy Duck cartoons. Daffy's reading a comic about Dick Tracy, and Daffy got overexcited, and he ended up hitting himself in the face. And he starts dreaming about being Dick Tracy. But instead of Dick Tracy, it's Duck Tracy. And he gets loads of phone calls about how everybody's piggy banks are being stolen. And even his own piggy bank gets stolen. And so he goes to try and find his piggy bank. Now, what I love about this cartoon is that it's really, really cartoony. I mean, more than usual. Well, you know in cartoons where a character just falls and they go splat, and they're always getting themselves hurt, and that's the whole point of the cartoon. But in this cartoon, it's just silly cartoony. And that's exactly what I love about this cartoon. It's silly funny, but at the same time it tries to be serious. But it's always silly. And for you guys to understand what I'm talking about, you're going to have to watch the cartoon to see what I'm talking about. I just love its cartoon silly moments. And my favourite parts in this cartoon is when Daffy finally finds the bad guys in this cartoon. I mean, come on, they look funny, their names are funny. That, in my opinion, was the highlight of the cartoon, where he finds the bad guys. All the jokes in this cartoon are funny, it's enjoyable to watch, and I highly recommend it. And now, you guys are probably thinking, oh, this is the end of the video, and there's nothing else to talk about. Well, actually there is, because I have this gimmick where I put things at number 0, and whenever I put something at number 0, it will stay at number 0 because it is my all-time favourite cartoon, or anime, or movie, or whatever. And it will never ever be replaced, even if I was to make another list. And so that said, let's move on to my favourite Daffy Duck cartoon ever. And my favourite Daffy Duck cartoon is, or cartoons is a tiebreaker, and it is Boobs in the Woods and My Favourite Duck. Now, what I love about these two is that they're both the same. Porky's on his holiday and he wants to be left alone, and basically Porky's camping in the middle of the woods, and Daffy comes along and starts messing with Porky. And that's basically it when it comes to these two cartoons. It's just Daffy messing with Porky. When it comes to Bugs Bunny, he messes with people because they messed with him. But when it comes to Daffy, he messes with people because he just thinks it's funny. And Porky hasn't even done anything to Daffy. And in the end of these two cartoons, Daffy gets his comeuppance. In Boobs of the Woods, Daffy is protected by the law, so if Porky ever goes after Daffy, he will be fined. But when it comes to My Favourite Duck, Daffy actually outsmarts Porky. In both these cartoons, they can be cartoony and silly at the same time. It's a good balance of being silly and characters getting hurt. It's a good balance between those two. You can have a laugh on how silly it is, and you can have a laugh when the characters get hurt. But I think my favourite one out of the two is My Favourite Duck because Daffy is outsmarting Porky. But saying that, I love both of them, and my favourite part in the cartoon, even though the entire cartoon is funny, in Boobs in the Woods is number 1, Porky gets beaten up by an eagle because Daffy switched his normal chicken egg for an eagle egg. And the other one is near the end when Porky starts chasing after Daffy and Daffy breaks the fourth wall. It kind of reminds me of Duck Amuck in a way. And when it comes to My Favourite Duck, again, even though all the jokes in this cartoon, My Favourite Duck is fantastic, I think my favourite part in this cartoon is number 1, when Daffy pretends to be Pocahontas. My second favourite part is the part where Daffy gets caught ringing the fish bell and he goes crazy. I just found that part hilarious. And my third favourite moment is when Daffy tricks Porky into thinking that he's playing baseball and he ends up in the mud. In both these cartoons, Daffy is just loony. And you know what? That's what I love about Daffy in these two cartoons. He's just all about loony while he's messing with people. I think this is the best of Daffy. Yeah, sure, don't get me wrong. It's funny when people outwit Daffy, but I just love the fact that Daffy is just being all about silly and cartoony. And you know what? It's nice to see Daffy win sometimes. And it's funny how he gets his comeuppance from time to time. And I love how sometimes he can be serious and sometimes he can be Daffy. And that's exactly what I love about Daffy. He can be all those things. Sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses, sometimes he can be a silly, Daffy, cartoon character, and sometimes he tries to be serious by trying to take down Bugs Bunny. He's a good mixture of all those. Yeah, Bugs Bunny is the cool cartoon character that beats everybody most of the time, but when it comes to Daffy, his cartoons can be unpredictable, and that's what I like about his cartoons. They are unpredictable. You don't know if he's going to win, you don't know if he's going to lose, and that's exactly why I love Daffy. He can get outsmarted, he can outsmart his opponent. Sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses. It's just a great mixture. And that, my friends, are all my favourite Daffy Duck cartoons. And listen, only because your favourite Daffy Duck cartoon isn't on this list doesn't mean your favourite cartoon that isn't on this list doesn't mean your favourite Daffy Duck cartoon is crap. In fact, I love all the Daffy Duck cartoons. But to me, all these cartoons that was on this list were memorable to me, and funny, and left an impact on me. So don't take this list too seriously. I mean, if you guys have a favourite Daffy Duck cartoon, please let me know in the comments below. I mean, who knows, maybe I need to be reminded of how funny that cartoon was, and maybe that cartoon deserves to be on this list. So yeah, what do you guys think of this list? Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you love Daffy Duck? What's your favourite Daffy Duck cartoon? Please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. I'm Freaky. Peace out. And please don't forget to check out my other social medias. Please go and check out my alternative video platforms, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Twitch, and please come and hang out on my Discord server. We can play games, have a movie night or a series night, or you can watch me play a few games. And if you guys have any suggestions of any videos you want me to react to, or any video ideas in general, you can tell me on my Discord. I'm also on Twitter, Gab, Getter, and Paula. I'm on Locals, Tumblr, Minds, and TikTok. And if you guys want to support me, please go and check out my Subscribe Star. It's like Patreon but better. All these things are in the description box below, so please go and check them out and subscribe to them. I'm Geek Freak. Peace out.